beliefs, values, and practice, and which served as a very important guidelines for managing their state of poverty. So from this approach, we can say that culture is very important to alleviate poverty. So we will continue this discussion in today's class. And for the past 8 to 10 years, we can say that the Chinese government is very successful to reduce poverty nationwide. And actually we use 5 angles. The 5 angles including the strategy of target poverty alleviation, and the increased financial investment in those very impoverished areas. And we try to inspire people's passion and the creativity of those poor people. And we also mobilize the various social forces in poverty reduction. And we try to ask every single individual to participate in a poverty reduction. The last angle is we intensify assessment and supervision during the whole process. And those 5 angles is all under the party's leadership and the Chinese government leadership. So this is really a great achievement to eradicate the extreme poverty, not only in China, but also to build up a role model for the whole world. So within these 5 angles, in today's class, I would like to emphasize 4 important aspects, including education, healthcare, tourism, and e-commerce. And lastly, I will use one single case. In the past 3 years, we study a very small village in Guizhou province. And in today's class, I would like to use this one single case to illustrate how to revitalize village, how to inspire the poor people, their strong passion and commitment to reduce poverty, to lift out of the poverty status. So this is the outline of today's class. So first aspect is about education. Education is so important. And according to Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, this index, the poverty index, the components could be divided into 3 different dimensions. And the first dimension is education. The second dimension is health. And the third one is living conditions. Within the respect of the first dimension, when we talk about education, according to OPHI, this index, including the years of schooling and the child enrollment. For example, if no person in the household has completed 5 years of schooling, if any school-aged child is out of school, if that situations happen, we will put those people into the poverty status. So education is so important. And when we try to assess the impact of poverty on children's learning, and we can say that poverty actually affects students' learning in many different ways. And from sociological perspective, scholars found that poverty results in brain changes from several factors, including the nutritional deficits, lack of emotional support, high level of stress, distress, the health issues, and the other safety issues. And the scholars also found that there will be a high correlation between poverty and the academic success. Students from low economic status, from poor families, they usually had much higher failing rates, as much higher as 85%. And the young children from poverty families, they usually have about 70% of the vocabulary of the same aged child coming from a working class family, and about 45% of the vocabulary of a child from a professional family. So that so from those stats, from those studies, we can see that actually poverty affects a student's academic pursuit and academic success very much. So when we emphasize human capital input as an important approach to lift the poor people out of poverty status, and we can see that a good quality education in China has been promoted during this battle, poverty battle. And through education, we can say that poverty can be prevented from passing down from generation to generation. And in the past 8 to 10 years, through the continuous efforts by the Chinese government, the access to good quality education for the impoverished people has improved. The Chinese government has continued to increase support for schools in poor areas to improve their conditions, such as the standard of teaching, the quality of teacher, the faculties, as well as other financial resources. And the Chinese government also ensures the compulsory education for all school-aged children. All of the 200,000 dropouts from compulsory education coming from a poor family, those students have returned to school, and more than 8 million middle and high school graduates from poor families, they have received the vocational training, and more than 5 million poor students, they have received higher education, and the key institutions of higher learning have admitted around 700,000 students from rural areas and from poor areas. All this has opened up more channels for poor students and help them move upwards in the society. And they have a high expectations for the future. They understand through their efforts, they can change their fate. The government has offered training on standard spoken and written Chinese language to 3.5 million rural teachers and the young farmers, especially in those isolated minority areas, in an effort to make poor people from these areas more competitive in the job market so that they could find a better job with much higher educational status. And since 2013, China has renovated more than 100,000 schools in the rural areas to strengthen the provision of compulsory education and ensure that all school-aged rural children, they can receive elementary education within their own village. And there are no dropouts in the countryside because of the financial difficulties. And our compulsory education is available to every single child from rural poor households. And the completion rate of the compulsory education in 2020 is almost equal to 100%. We also have a lot of disadvantaged children with disabilities. So we can see that more than 80,000 disabled children, they have received preschool education. And what's more important that was to emphasize is that with the technology advancement, especially with the 4G technology, and almost 100% of poor villages, they have access to the 4G technology so that we can promote the distance education to those poor areas, to those poor people. I would like to argue that the distance learning, distance education is able to make our education more equitable in rural place. And the Chinese government initiated a so-called the Distance Education Project for Rural Schools, DEPRS. So this DEPRS was established to improve the quality of basic education in rural areas of China, especially in the poorer western and inland province. This project has been referred to as the largest ICT project in the world so far. because it serves a larger population than any other similar projects, and therefore will likely start a far-reaching information revolution in China. So it is an information revolution. So when we talk about education in those poor areas, we can see that for those schools, there are lack of quality teachers, and the faculty members is very low. And the second problem for those schools in rural places is they also shorted. They are also very short of funding. They don't have enough funding. So how to solve this problem? So distance learning and distance education is a viable option to improve access to and the equity and quality of basic education in the rural places. Just with the internet, with the 4G technology. So poor students in very remote areas, in the countryside, in the rural places, they can receive the same education with those peer fellows, peer students in the cities, such as in Beijing and Shanghai. And the teachers, the rural teachers, they can also receive better training, quality training from the internet, from the distance education. So it is a win-win situation, and the cost is very low when we use distance learning. So it is a great option. So this table shows the effect of distance learning in Gansu province. So scholars found that for all of those students who are participate in the distance learning, they have a much higher academic achievement. And a lot of students, when we asked how they perceive the distance learning, they said that the distance learning could inspire their interest in study, could improve their understanding of subject matters, and could promote independent thinking. Also stimulate imagination, cultivating creativity, and enhancing the overall study ability. So the effect, so we can argue that the distance learning and distance education is very effective in promote the human capital input and promote the poor people to receive better and quality education with very low cost. But still, we have to remember that when people develop feelings that they are liked, wanted, acceptable, and able from having been liked, wanted, accepted, and from having been successful, what is important is that poverty should not be used to track or label students. It should only serve to understand the diversity of students in the same way one might understand those, for example, language limited learners or other students in the classroom. And sometimes our teachers and educators, they are coming from middle class background, and we have some kind of middle class values. So sometimes it may be difficult for teachers, for educators to understand that poverty may bring on a different cultural and value system that's very different from middle class region. So we have to remove the poverty label from those poor students. And education is very important way. And when we talk about education, education is not only about students, right? For the Chinese government, the government also inspire the poor people to strive for prosperity and provide the poor people with necessary education so that they have the ambition to lift out of the poverty status and to succeed in their job, in their life. And the people in poverty have better access to educational opportunities, such as farmers' schools and training workshops, so that they can improve their abilities in work and in business. a significant improvement in the poverty battle is an effective mechanism of positive incentives, encouraging the poor people to learn from each other and to keep pace with each other. Through this mechanism, the productive activities are rewarded and subsidized, and the jobs instead of grants, fundings are provided to the poor people so that to encourage those people to rely on their own efforts instead of waiting for the government assistance, government funding, and so on and so forth. So this is the first aspect, education. The second aspect is healthcare. In the poverty battle process, the Chinese government has established a three-tier healthcare system in the rural places, at village and township and county levels. All of those levels, the three-tier healthcare system has been improved. The population now have access to basic medical insurance, critical illness insurance, and medical assistance to ensure that the medical treatment to the impoverished people with major illness and healthcare to the impoverished with chronic disease and guarantee the medical services for the impoverished with critical illness. So thus far, the basic medical insurance, the coverage of basic medical insurance of the poor people is almost equal to 100%. So today, all of the impoverished people, they have been guaranteed basic medical services and medical insurance. And through these measures, China has resolved the problem of difficult and expensive access to medical treatment for the poor people. Efforts have been also made to popularize knowledge on children's nutrition and health. And following the implementation of nutritional improvement projects for children in poor areas, children in those regions, they can enjoy better health. And the Chinese government also gives a free daily pack of nutritional dietary supplements to every baby aged from 6 months to 2 years old in poor areas. And by the end of 2020, a total of 11.2 million children, they had benefit from this project. And some basic birth defect prevention and relief program have also been launched to help cover medical expenses for children who suffered from poverty and serious disease, such as some inherited metabolic disorders. China continued to improve the protection of orphans' rights and interest. And with monthly allowance for orphans in welfare institutions and families that provide temporary care. And it costs a lot of money for each people, but the effect is very significant to help orphans. So this is the second aspect on healthcare. The third aspect I would like to discuss is tourism, especially for the pro-poor tourism, which is the PPT, the pro-poor tourism. The pro-poor tourism, PPT, has been one of China's major tasks since the Chinese economic reform, and it remains a strategic pillar in building a prosperous society by 2020. When we talk about PPT, PPT should not just be used to promote rural economic development, but also to bring about a self-motivated transformation of rural society. According to the Chinese government strategy, PPT should change the face of villages and improve educational status for villagers. The target of rural development is modernization, not only the industrialization or rural development through industrialization. So PPT should clarify that preserving the unique characteristics of rural areas is not about halting progress or a forced regression back to the former times, but results from the dynamic progress of local people, how they exercise their right to the pursuit of happiness, and promote innovation in tourism, land use, and promote the sustainable development of pro-poor tourism. And with respect to the PPT, land has always been one of the most important elements in economic development, and the rural tourism development is no exception. So PPT can be used in conjunction with policy-based poverty alleviation to create some special tourism land use policies. This will not only promote innovation in tourism land use, but also improve the sustainability of PPT. Also, we have to emphasize that the different types of agricultural funds can also be used to develop tourism in poor areas and villages with great tourism potential. But we still have to notice that PPT is not short-term rapid economic development through government driving, but actually raise a strong awareness of people's basic rights and aspirations for improvement among rural people. So the first target of PPT is not the growth of regional government revenue, but actually the growth of every single individual farmer or individual household. The second target of PPT project is to provide a model for other villages. So more attention should be paid to the economic development of regions surrounding these poor areas. Impoverished villages are not independently existed, but actually function in close connection with other surrounded areas and surrounded villages. So when we talk about implementation of poverty alleviation measures, especially when we promote the PPT, we should be very familiar with the greater environment of the poor areas and try to set up a role model of one single village and put it as a role model for other villages. So this is the third aspect. The last aspect, the fourth one, is e-commerce, and it develops very fast in today's China. So what is e-commerce? E-commerce is actually the buying and selling of goods over the internet. And it allows more people to access to the potential global markets to sell their products. And this can help reduce poverty by opening up a new avenue of income for the poor areas. And actually, it has been very effective for those facing rural poverty. So e-commerce has played a major role in poverty alleviation in China. And we have like around 800 state level impoverished counties, and every single county, they has e-commerce program to alleviate poverty. And 2 years ago, we can see that we have around almost 14 mini rural e-commerce shops. And those shops, the total online sale revenue is about $8 billion in the first quarter of 2020. And I believe this figure has been increased in the past 1 year. And when we talk about e-commerce, we can remember that the Alibaba Group, actually, they launched the Rural Taobao program in 2014 to give rural people a better access to the internet and help village farmers to increase their income by selling agricultural products to the urban consumers via their online platform. By setting up e-commerce service networks in counties, in villages, it is a good way to improve the logistics collections for villages and promote the income for the villager people. So what is the mechanism of e-commerce? So when we talk about the impoverished areas, when we talk about the people who are trapped in poverty status, so we can see that those state level impoverished areas, they are actually distributed in the different parts of China. And for those areas, they have very poor supply chain. They actually, especially, they are short of transportation infrastructure, and they have low level of services. They don't understand what is market. They're short of market information, financial support, as well as some technology information. So for those impoverished areas, they can produce very fresh fruits, vegetables, and very featured local products. But how to sell them, how to brand them, how to promote the image of those fresh fruits and vegetables, it is like a mission impossible. So with very unfamiliar brands, unstable quality, and plus limited distribution channels, it is equal to low benefits and will lead to the poverty status. So what is our solution? The solution is we use e-commerce as a bridge, as a link to link the impoverished people with the markets, with a huge market. So with the help of e-commerce, we can improve the logistics collections. We can have a large market support. We can also train the local villagers with the technology advancement. So actually, e-commerce is a main force to alleviate poverty in those remote areas. And when we talk about e-commerce, we will also use big data as a basic element within the e-commerce approach. So how do we do this? We usually identify the poor households based on the data from different channels. And we found out the causes for poverty. Then we analyze the local industries competitiveness to concentrate to the most suitable industry to develop. And we also find out which industry is suitable for sustainable development and make a decision for the way of e-commerce, which way of e-commerce to be used. So this is a big data platform. And within this big data platform, we can see that within this county, we have a lot of villages and poor areas. And it shows how many people are in poverty status, how many households are in poverty status. So what is our poverty rates? How can we help those poor people to increase their income? So what are the causes of those poverty people? Are they short of education, short of financial support, short of water, or because of their illness or other causes? So through this big data platform, we can have a very clear picture of the poverty status in this one single county. This photo shows a village vegetables and fruits big data platform. And through this platform, we can see what are the most popular local products, the local fruits, local vegetables are selling in the markets. What is the most popular fruits? And we can also say the total number of orders, total average number of orders, average spending of orders. We can also see who buy those local products from which province. So through based on this big data platform, we can have some data to solve local people's selling problems and help them to sell their local products to the big markets across the whole nation. So this is the magic of big data platform. So when we use the e-commerce as an approach to alleviate poverty, the basic precision is first, we have to identify the impoverished families who are need assistance. And we choose a very suitable industry and help them to operate. And we then introduce suitable e-commerce companies and match those e-commerce companies with villages need. And we found a way for the area families and products to connect with each other. We also apply favorite policies to those who are using the e-commerce platform. And lastly, we evaluate the effect of measures and help those families to develop a sustainable approach to sell their products. So e-commerce play a major role in poverty alleviation in China. So the Chinese government has invested in improving the existing e-commerce system all the time. And in the future, the government plans to improve infrastructure in rural areas to smooth urban-rural trade channels, especially for those agricultural products. And the third-party delivery services improve the regional logistic systems, and the cultivation of local brands will also support the agricultural products. In the future, the growing industry of e-commerce has a great potential to bring all rural Chinese people above the international poverty line, so they can have some extra money by selling their local products to the market. Just use the online platform such as Taobao, Alibaba, and the Pinduoduo, those different kinds of e-commerce platform. And when we talk about e-commerce, and it seems like China has already become an e-commerce role model for other countries. So other countries can learn from China's e-commerce model. And China's success comes in part from the extensive government involvement in lives of individual people. I believe other countries can still take note of the booming e-commerce industry and how to teach every single people to use the e-commerce platform. I believe investment in e-commerce development programs have a great power to help end rural poverty in China. So this is the benefits, this is the advantagement of e-commerce in poverty alleviation. So I talked about the 4 aspects, including education, healthcare, tourism, especially the pro-poor tourism and e-commerce as 4 important elements, 4 pillars to support China's cultural poverty alleviation in the past 8 to 10 years. So next, I would like to illustrate a case study in Guizhou province. It is called Dimen Village in Liping County in Guizhou province. And this is our research site. I bring students to Dimen Village, and we have studied Dimen Village for the past 3 years. And in the future, we will continue our study in this small village. So I would like to give some lessons, how to give what we have done in the past 3 years and how we plan to do in the future as a case study. So this is an overview picture of Dimen Village. It is in a very remote area in Liping County. It is pretty far away from Beijing. If you take a flight, you will have to take 3 hours flight to the capital city of Guizhou province, which is Guiyang. When you arrive in Guiyang, you have to take the bus, half-day bus from Guiyang to Dimeng village. It is actually pretty far away. So usually you spend the whole day on the road when you come from Beijing to Dimeng village. But it is a very beautiful village, I would like to say. So Dimeng village is located in Liping County. So where's Liping? So from this map on the right, we can see that Liping County is located in the southeastern part of Guizhou province. It is the most populous county of the Dong nationality, Dongzhu. It is also the main birthplace of the Dong culture, the Dongzhu Wenhua. So in 2020, Liping County, the whole county's regional GDP is around 10 billion yuan. And the per capita income of local people is just a little bit beyond 10,000 yuan. So every month for those local people, for local villagers, the average monthly income is around, it's a little bit about 800 yuan. So it is really poor place, really poor place. So Dimeng village is inside the Liping County. So what is Dimeng? Dimeng actually literally means a place where spring water flows out. Symbolize village prosperity and the flourishing population. It is a standard, it is a symbol. According to stories from local songs, Dong people, they have been living in Dimeng village since the Tang Dynasty, with a history of more than 1,000 years. In today's Dimeng Dong community, Dimeng village, they have 5 different communities. And in 2020, Dimeng village has a population of 2,700 people and a total of a little bit more than 500 households. And the majority of the young people, like 75% to 80%, the majority of the young people and the middle-aged people, they're actually living and working in the city as migrant workers. So only children and elderly people, they are left behind in the village. In 2020, the per capita income of the village is just about 10,000 yuan. So the monthly income is around 800 yuan. I would like to show more pictures of this very beautiful village. So we can see that the whole view is so green, and they have a lot of wooden building. The majority of the building are in a wooden framework. So this is sunshine. This is the morning in the village. And this is another angle to see the whole picture of the village. Every single building use the wood as a wooden building. And this is an old man working in the village. So as just mentioned, that only children and elder people, they are currently living in the village. And the young and middle-aged labor force, they are studying, working, and living in the city. And this is a very beautiful place. Must be a place of interest. Could be an ideal location to develop a pro-poor tourism, right? It is a place of interest to attract the tourist to visit this place, no matter how far it is away from the city. The transportation is okay, I think. It only take it will take 1 day to travel from the major city, Beijing, Shanghai, to Dimeng village. But believe me, it is really worth to visit this small village. But in Dimeng village, they have the cultural heritage. The whole community preserve the tangible cultural assets, including the drum towers, and the flower bridge, green storage, archaical wells and waterways, and some traditional housing, as well as some botanical treasures. So the drum towers is the symbol of this village, and it is the cultural heritage. It is so famous worldwide. So this is the drum towers. But apart from the cultural heritage, Dimeng village has a platform of the intangible cultural heritage. The whole community also preserve some intangible assets, including the Dong folk song and the Dong opera, and some traditional paper making and the cookery, as well as textile weaving, dyeing, and so on and so forth. So in my opinion, the drum towers is so attractive. But what is more attractive is those intangible cultural heritage. So if you have a chance to visit this small village, you must have to listen to the local Dong folk music, especially in their festival. You will have a great experience to get the first-hand access to those intangible cultural heritage. So it is the most valuable asset of this small village. But still, this Dimeng village is still very poor. So this is one example. From this photo, we can see the building, because the building, the whole village is built by the wood. So the wooden building is so easy to catch fire. So this is another picture to show that every single building is built by wood. So it is very shabby, very poor, and very dilapidated, very old, very shabby, very old, and very easy to catch fire. So this is another picture to show that the majority of the house was built by wood. And of course, they have some exception that when the young people, when they earn money from the city, after working in the city, and when they come back to the village, they would like to build a brick house. So in this picture, we can see that they have a brick house, but the majority of the house is still built by wood. And because the young people and the middle-aged people, they go to the city to earn money. So the elderly people left behind in the village, especially for those women. So for those women, they spend the entire life living in this small village. They couldn't get a chance to visit the big cities, such as Beijing, Shanghai. Sometimes they will visit the capital city of Guizhou province, that is Guiyang, but they still spend the majority of their time living in this small village. So they have a deep, deep connection with this village. So this picture shows that e-commerce play a very major role in poverty reduction in this small village. The photo in the right shows that it is a Longchun Taobao in village, the rural Taobao. So the local people could use this as a platform, online platform, to sell their local products. So it is a good way to collect local villages to the outside world, to the global market. And the photo in the left shows that when young people they are coming back from the city, they would like to build a brick house because the wooden house is more easy to catch fire. So for the young people, they would like to live in a brick house. So this is a gap between urban and rural living styles, lifestyles. But the question is, how many young people they are willing to come back to their hometown. So during our field interview, and our understanding is that when those young people, they go to the big cities to study, to work, to live in the cities, it is so difficult for those people to come back to live in the rural areas, to live in their hometown, because they have already accustomed themselves to the living style, the lifestyle of the city. So they are more likely to live in the cities instead of coming back to their hometown. And I also would like to mention that in this small village, the local governments, they build a Dimeng Dong eco museum. So what is eco museum? So in the traditional museum, they just exhibit a collection of different local goods, right? But for the eco museum, it is not only exhibition of the collections, but also would like to foster the preservation and the development of local cultures, and to recall and to recover local culture. And it would also play a major role in raising local people's active participation in the preservation of the local community. So it is the major function of eco museum. So those three photos, we can see that the photo on the left, we usually have some research meetings on the left photo in this small place. And we can brainstorm how to revitalize the village, how to sell the local villages products to the city consumers. So usually we use this place as a brainstorming research site. And on the right, the two photos on the right, this museum also provides lodging for researchers. And in the evening, it is so peaceful. And I took this picture. It is so peaceful in the evening, in the countryside, in this very small and remote areas. What's more important, a very important function of this museum is to provide education for the local children, for those left behind children. So they built up a very small library within this museum. So the local children, the local parents, they can bring their children to study here and to have some focus group. And sometimes our researchers also will provide some educational training or teach some classes for the children living in this area. And we also develop a so-called Go Hand in Hand project. This so-called Village and City Families Go Hand in Hand project aims to establish a producer-consumer relationship between village and the city families, and try to establish a friendly interaction between city families and village farmers. So for example, we sell the traditional local rice to the city families as a way to establish people's relationship. And in this way, some traditional farming and some unique local products can be sustainable developed. In September 2017, we established a Dimeng observatory station at the museum. So starting from March 2018, we send researchers and students to study, to work, and to do some field research there. In the past 3 years, we have provided intellectual assistance to the local area. So the purpose of our research project we try to promote research on related topics, such as in the protection, utilization, and development of traditional Chinese villages, and seek solutions for traditional villages to move toward a creative village, such as cultivate and develop a rural cultural and creative industries. We also would like to promote the Chinese localization practice of the international eco museum concept. We would like to promote the practice and the experience of Demon Village, and found solutions for the management and the effective use of those rural cultural assets. And we also organize a conference, which is called the New Rural Development Forum. We try to promote the Chinese rural lifestyle. We try to discover rural values, reevaluate rural values, export rural values to the cities. And we try to reshape rural spirits. And ultimately, we would like to foster the development of rural creative industry in the whole country. So this is our three purpose. So we send students to do field research in Demon Village. And through in-depth observations, field interviews, household surveys, and other field surveys, we would like to study the status quo of local villages. We would like to study the economic development, the local poverty elevation, and the rural revitalization practice in this Demon Village. So we did a lot. We also organize the conference every year, starting from 2017. So the first conference, the first New Rural Development Forum, concentrate on the township innovation and the new rural development. And in 2018, the second conference concentrated on the future planning and the construction development. The third conference concentrated on the future of traditional Chinese villages, the rural heritage revitalization, and the architecture renewal. Because of the pandemic, we stopped. We haven't organized conference in the past 2 years. So we plan to organize our fourth forum in 2020, in the spring of 2020, last year. And apart from organizing conference, we also try to establish community archives. So we help local villages to set up, to build a community archive center. We use this center to facilitate the local people's storage, protection, and utilization of the community archives. So the community archives is composed of two parts, the family archives and the public archives. We also help the local people to refine the index of various types of archives. So far, the whole community archive center has stored more than 5,000 paper files and more than 150,000 electronic files of the entire community. So we can use those archives to record the past history, to give the descendants of the land a place to trace the origin, and to build a place for them. So this is a very important bridge to strengthen the sense of identification with the culture of village. We also help the local people to edit their family tree. Starting from the last summer in July 2020, we would like to enhance the awareness of the local history. So we started to compile the family tree together with the local county sage. The first family tree is called Gaoya Fangzhu Zhupu. So this family tree was compiled in November 2020, last year. And it was used as a template for other people. So people use it as a reference when compiling their own family tree. We also start the Demon Village oral history activities. We would like to use the oral history to record the local history. So this activity aims to record the whole community's village history, to record the traditional products, the traditional buildings, the history of traditional buildings, the traditional customers, and the traditional handicrafts. So we put a lot of emphasis on history, on families' archives, to preserve the local culture. So we can see that the majority of the housing, the house is built by wooden, it's by wood. It is the wooden building, and the wooden building can be easily replaced by the brick house, right? So maybe in the future, those wooden buildings could be replaced by the brick house. But the history cannot be replaced. So we have to record the history. When we record the history, it is a good way to preserve the local culture. So this is what we have done in the past 3 years. So based on those activities and efforts, we are very proud of ourselves. We have promoted the local identity, and those social service activities stimulate the passion and interest of local groups of all ages to discover and understand the local culture and actively participate in the preservation of the local culture. And the local people, they can cultivate a strong sense of identity with the rural community. And this sense of identity was strengthened. We also promoted the revitalization of the local rural values. So our intellectual assistance in the past 3 years in this Demon Village has provided better solutions for the management and the effective use of local cultural assets. And the Demon Village has the tangible cultural assets and the intangible cultural assets, especially for the intangible cultural assets, like the Dong folk song, Dong opera. So it is so urgent to preserve those intangible cultural assets. So when we record the history of those intangible cultural assets, it is a good way to strengthen young people a strong passion toward the local culture and promote the revitalization of local values. So this is what we have done in the past 3 years, and we will continue our work on the revitalization and the building of a beautiful small village, and use Demon Village as a single case, as a role model to promote to other villages, to other counties across the whole nation. So this is our hope. The future is continuing. In the end, I would like to emphasize one more point. So when we talk about the cultural poverty alleviation, we have to remember that it is so urgent to remove stigma as a mechanism of poverty alleviation. According to our sociological studies, how individuals interpret and deal with exclusion and stigma is a very important factor in how discrimination affects their mental and physical health and well-being. It matters whether members of poverty groups internalize their low status and the stigma that comes with it, or interpreted their situation so as to change their low social status. The shame or stigma experienced by people in poverty would lead to social exclusion, lead to limited social capital, low worse, and the lack of agency that could all serve to prolong poverty. So a crucial way for the poverty reduction is try to put culture as a crucial element. So the cultural poverty alleviation is very crucial. It is a very important way to strengthen the poor people's social belongings and to increase their integration to the local community and to build up a strong solidarities, build up a strong confidence, and build up a strong identification with the local history, with the local culture, and also build up a strong hope, a strong expectations for the future development. So poverty is not only about give money to the poor people. Poverty is not only about income. Poverty is a culture, and it is a culture of poverty. Poverty, to lift the poor people out of poverty status, we have to give them hope, expectations, solidarities, integration, confidence, and so on and so forth. And we have to give them some tool, some hope to help them to get out of the poverty status. So this is my today's class. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we will move on to the Q&A section. So do we have any questions?